We have a special episode today because we have the winners of the Hot Chai Awards, voted on by you, the audience, and some spicy industry tea to serve up. So let's skip the small talk.
Listen up, it's jazz.
What is up, you guys? Happy New Year and welcome back to the Hot Chai Pod, a podcast where we spill all of that sizzling Bollywood tea. I'm your host, Jazz, and it's time for us to catch up. And I have to state the obvious first, which is that I am recording this as I'm pretty sick. So if I look and sound a little bit different, that's what's going on. But even though we're delayed a couple days, this had to come out. As many of you know, if you're following the Hot Chai Instagram, I was traveling to Sydney, Australia for the Christmas New Year's week for my cousin's wedding. So last week I just put out a Scandals of 2024 highlight episode, and now we're actually back. This episode has everything, okay? We have box office, we have PR, we have content review, and more. But first, as promised, drumroll please, we are announcing the winners of our Hot Chai Pod Awards 2024. The teacups voted, and we will listen. So let's get to it. So let's go through our Hot Chai Award winners for each category, as well as the runner-ups, aka second place. And if there is a tie, I'm going to be the tiebreaker because I didn't vote. So fair is fair. In our first category, who was our PR King of the Year? It was a tie between Kartik, Aaryan and Shah Rukh Khan. And I was surprised by the King Khan mention, but he does consistently have good, subtle PR if you pay attention. So the teacups obviously very savvy and caught on to that as I expected. But for this year, as tiebreaker, I am going to give it to Kartik Aaryan because there's been a lot of random, press around him, a lot of news articles following his movie releases. So then second place would go to Shah Rukh Khan. Now for PR Queen, with nearly 42% of the vote, you guys gave this to Ananya Pandey, and I'm actually going to have to agree there. We did discuss this, that you literally cannot go on social media, go online without seeing new posts or random content about Ananya Pandey. And likewise, in second place with 25% of the vote was Alia Bhatt. And there's really no surprise there. Now, did that work against her this year? We will discuss through the rest of the categories. For hottest dance number, with 50% of the votes, goes to Toba Toba from Bad News. And you guys know I'm glad about this one because it was also my favorite movie/dance song. And second place went to Aaj Ki Raat from Street 2, and I'm surprised it wasn't closer because I still hear both songs being played around, and they actually played Aaj Ki Raat during the fireworks show in Australia this year, for the New Year's Eve in Sydney. And so it obviously made its mark. Negative news, the biggest surprise, underperforming movie went to Jigra with 58% of the votes. And Chandu Champion and Fighter were tied for second place. I think I'll give it to Fighter because I kind of expected more from Hrithik Roshan, Deepika Padukone. It is interesting to me that people were so surprised that Jigra didn't do well at the box office, but part of me thinks that's a testament to how strong Alia's PR game has been, as we've discussed in prior episodes, because personally, when I had seen the trailer and news about it, I was not so sure that the movie would be a huge hit. But maybe it's less so the PR and more the scandal, because for our biggest scandal of the year category, with 50% of the votes, was the Alia Bhatt Vasan Bala interview. Specifically, that soundbite where Vasan Bala says that the script for Jigra was sent to Alia by Karan Johar without his permission. And okay, I do have thoughts on this because in second place is the Aishwarya Abhishek separation rumors that have been pretty persistent since they arrived separately to that Ambani wedding event. And now we've discussed both of these topics a lot on the show, and I have to say that the Aishwarya Abhishek of it all has brought in a lot of new teacups, so welcome and thank you. But I can see what you guys are saying here, which is that we've had all of these, over the past several years, we've had all of these nepotism, favoritism discussions, right? Buzzing around, especially after the Sushant Singh Rajput stuff. And in this moment, in this interview between Basan Bala and Alia Bhatt, it did confirm a lot of what people have been saying, which is that like Karan Johar has propped up Alia's career and that there's script stealing with nepos and interference and that real outside talent is suppressed in the industry. And I think the teacups have a point because I do believe that Jigra suffered at the box office partly due to the backlash from this very scandalous interview moment. So, okay, I concede. As a side note, Aishwarya, Abhishek, and Aradhya were apparently traveling together for New Year's Eve, so maybe my off and on again relationship theory about them isn't so far-fetched anymore. But back to the awards, maybe there is some outsider hope and potential because of these next few categories. So for Hottest Rising Star, Vidang Reina took 67% of the vote, which was actually very shocking to me. But I don't think it's a coincidence. You guys know my conspiracies. He does get a lot of press. He's dating Kushi Kapoor, so he kind of stays fresh in people's minds, and maybe people did like his performance in Jigra if they saw it. And no, I'm not just saying that because I'm salty that Lakshay came in second place with 25% of the votes. I'm just glad that Lakshay is getting any attention at all from you guys. And speaking of, for the category Biggest Surprise Hit, the movie Kill took this away. So 42% of you voted that Kill was the biggest surprise hit movie. And in second place was Manja. And both of these make sense to me because I don't think anybody could have predicted the love that both of these movies received from the audience. Like Kill, I don't know if you guys have seen over the past few weeks, it's consistently been on these like best film lists, even internationally, like Marie Claire, GQ. So it did make an impact for the action genre. And if we're talking about impact for our industry queen of the year, we had a tie between Tripti Dimri and Kriti Sanon. And I not so secretly love that we have these two outsiders doing so well recently, but as tiebreaker, I am going to have to give this to Kriti Sanon. I think in our last episode, I mentioned that she had both Teri Batome and Crew, which were hit movies at the box office. Plus, she produced her first movie, Dopati, for Netflix this year, and I do think Tripti is the one to watch for the upcoming year because she signed some pretty huge films. She has a movie with Kartik, Aaryan. She has movies with everybody. And we will see if she kind of cements herself in the industry for long term. And speaking of surprise hits, our industry king of the year in a landslide went to Kartik, Aaryan. So even though Chandu Champion didn't do too well at the box office, it's still a good project in his portfolio, as we've discussed. Then Bulbulaya 3 came around and gave him the commercial success to kind of make up for it. But similar to Tripti, we'll have to see how he maintains that momentum moving into this year. Actually, I'm not sure if he has a release in 2025 or if they're all slated for 2026. And in second place was Rajkumar Rao, who gave us 3 movies. Even though Stree 2 was this, gigantic success in the industry, record-breaking, it is interesting to me that he's perceived maybe not as much of hero material or like star hero as Kartik Aaryan, at least by the teacups, but maybe also by the masses. Finally, we come to our best movie categories. For the best of streaming, 33% of the votes went to Amar Singh Chamkila, and I was happy to see it because you all know my deep profound love of Diljit Dosanjh. Okay, which, by the way, did you see him with Prime Minister Modi? Kind of random, but I guess his tour really broke all these records. And then you really couldn't make up your minds for second place because there was a 3-way tie between Sector 36, Dopati, and Maharaja. And I actually can't tiebreak because I haven't seen Sector 36 yet, but I have heard good things. So you can comment below your choice between the 3 movies and let us know why. Why'd you pick it? For best critical acclaim in a sweeping 92% of the vote, La Pata Ladies won this full on. And sadly, it has been booted out of the pre-Oscar considerations, but who cares? As long as we loved it, we don't need that type of external validation. Now do we? And finally, for best movie box office hit, the winner is Stree 2. I'm actually glad that this aligned because of how monumental the box office collections were, right? So good, people actually did enjoy it. And in second place, more horror comedy with Bulbulaya 3 taking 25% of the vote. And yes, I did see some haters on Reddit last week decrying that, Bulbulaya 3 is the end of cinema and that the Indian audience only likes garbage. And I think Anurag Kashyap also said the same thing last week, but I'm sorry, the majority has spoken. So thank you guys for voting, and I'm excited to keep having fun with this for the upcoming year. And now let's get into some of our regularly scheduled chai. Now, one movie that will not be making it to the Hotchaipod Awards 2025 will be Baby John. I mean, it really didn't do so well. So, Baby John was Varun Dhawan's big commercial action film, and it was released this past Christmas. And it's a remake of Atli's film called Theri. So Atli basically remade it in Hindi with Varun Dhawan and Wamika Gabbi. And I think a lot was riding on both this Baby John and Citadel Honey Bunny for Varun Dhawan to make the jump from like lover boy, chocolate hero to grown-up movie star. And it does not look like that super worked out on either front. The producers took a very big gamble with this movie because the budget itself was 160 crores. So obviously you have to perform above that in collections to even be an average or a semi-hit. And if you remember, I think now a couple months ago, we did chat about Varun Dhawan. He was at the Citadel Honey Bunny like press or promotions, right? And he was talking to Aditya Chopra. He wanted like a Spyverse movie, and Aditya Chopra said, "I'm not taking a chance on you for an action film because the budgets are too big, and I don't think like you, Varun, could bring in the audiences accordingly." So we have to ask: is it just because of Varun that this movie didn't work, or was the film bad? Now, I didn't get a chance to see it, but the reviews were not so positive. And maybe in this case, people were banking on Atli because he had, Javan, which was a huge blockbuster. But again, that's a rough and like unequal comparison. It's not apples to apples when you're comparing Varun Dhawan as the star versus not only Shah Rukh Khan, but Shah Rukh Khan coming off of his comeback movie Pathan, right? I guess the question is, will this impact Varun signing new movies? Well, this is Bollywood, and he already had a couple projects lined up despite not really having any box office traction in the past few years, but maybe projects will start drying up more after that, or he'll pull an Abhishek Bachchan and he will have 9 lives in the industry. It could go either way. As for the fate of the movie's heroine, Wamika Gabbi, I think she and her team thought that this movie would be a big jump for her career as well. So if you don't know her, she's been in a couple Hindi movies like Khufiya with Tabu, but she's also been in different TV series for the majority of her career. So a movie with Varun Dhawan directed by Atli was a pretty important opportunity for her to, get in front of the audience and make a mark. But more of that attention was happening outside of the theater rather than inside. Now, I know I sound cryptic, but luckily I've been able to monitor social media and Reddit for the past couple weeks, and I am not the only one seeing the blatant PR campaigns around Wamika. I highly doubt that these are inorganic. I guess you never really know, but they're too consistent. There's too many of them, and they're from these weird accounts. So it started with some strange comparisons to Aishwarya Rai just because of her light eyes. But it went not just a little too far. It went to a level that I could only describe as seriously offensive because there were tons of reels and memes, and they're basically saying that Wamika is Aishwarya's doppelganger, or that God made a second Aishwarya Rai for us. And let me hold my thoughts here for a second, okay? Because it didn't stop there. There were some truly hateful posts that Wamika is the daughter that Aishwarya should have had, not Aradhya. Finally, I guess they wanted to leave no beauty stone unturned, and they went for Deepika Padukone. Yes, Deepika Padukone, the one who looks like a supermodel. There was content being made that said Wamika looks like what Deepika wishes she looked like. Can we get a moment of silence for the reality that has left the building? If you can't already tell, people online were not having any of this. I just saw mountains of comments and Reddit posts calling out this blatant PR strategy. And look, she is an outsider as far as I know, so some aggressive PR is going to be necessary to be competitive. Obviously, just from a psychology perspective, when something is so clearly far from the truth and is being thrown in your face as fact, people will have a strong opposite reaction to that. Like, hey, I can see with my own eyes, you're lying to me. And I'm not trying to be mean. Wamika is obviously a pretty actress, but Aishwarya Rai, Deepika Padukone, absolutely not. I personally think she would have had more success if she kind of tried to frame herself as like the new Rani Mukherjee. Because Rani, so hear me out, because Rani was also petite and, she's pretty with the light eyes and the rounder face. And as Sanjay Leela Bansali kind of described it, the girl next door kind of beauty. So I think that would have resonated a little bit more like, okay, I could see her fitting into those types of roles. And let's not forget, trying to compare yourself to not only Aradia, who's 13 and very cute. Face it, who among us looked amazing at 13, right? Let's not revisit that trauma. But there were also posts comparing Wamika to Raha Kapoor. Yes, Raha Kapoor, literally a toddler. What is going on? How is this effective? And yes, part of this is to capitalize on like trending content and names. And Raha was trending during Christmas week because of the new paparazzi photos and the Christmas parties and travel, but it was still a very bizarre move. But all of this to say, maybe this wasn't Wamika calling the shots, and it was just a case of, runway PR kind of overthinking the hype that she would have. And let it be known that this is not an anti-Wamika rant, because I do hope that she can recover from this Baby John flop fiasco and continue to be a fresh face in the industry. But one of you teacups did write in and ask Shady Boots if I can discuss her plastic surgery before and after, because there, is quite a bit of chatter around that online. And actually numerous posts were made on Reddit about if she's had plastic surgery or what work has been done. So I will preface this by saying that she has lost a lot of weight. So that does make it harder to compare and say definitively that there's been, for instance, jawline slimming, right? Is that from weight loss or is that from surgery? And as always, this segment is for entertainment purposes only. Everything here is speculation and just derived from my own interest in the field, as well as opinions of different plastic surgeons that I've seen online. So getting back to it, it's also hard to find an older photo of Wamika wearing good makeup, so that can be a factor. But in my opinion, there does seem to be maybe some subtle enhancements, because I'm seeing a slimmer nose, I'm seeing a smaller nose flare, and maybe some upper lip filler for some facial balancing, which is very common in Korean cosmetic work. And like I said, the jawline, hard to say. People are saying, well, she has too much of a V shape, but because of the weight loss or even other factors, but maybe the illusion is there because the chin does look more elongated, which could just be a little bit of filler to balance out a smaller nose now. And I want to say blepharoplasty or Botox brow lift to possibly make the eyes bigger or just kind of increase the space here. But that one is also a close call. So there you go. You got a little teacup time sprinkled in here. For our actual teacup time, I wanted to do a brief, no spoiler review of Mismatched Season 3, which landed on Netflix a few weeks ago. Many of you early teacups may remember that I was begging for a new season, and then the next week it was announced. So if you haven't seen Season 1 and 2, it's on Netflix. And do I recommend it? Yes. If you are into young adult drama, there are different kind of stories, different characters, and it is compelling. Watching Season 3, I did kind of forget the past 2 seasons while going into this one, so I was pretty grateful that they did like a longer recap for that, but still there were some details that I was kind of lost on. This season is 8 episodes, about an hour episode each, and I do think that the ending leaves it open for a season 4, and that's all I will say. Season 3 felt a little bit more adult, and it makes sense because it jumps a few years into the future from the last season. So it touched on some pretty serious topics, from trans issues to grief to how to navigate, different levels of success in a relationship between two partners, which could be a whole series in itself. What I will give the writers credit for is that despite all of the characters, they all have flaws or they're all kind of annoying, you do find yourself rooting for them in a weird way, all of them. So overall, good watch. I did not feel as addicted this time around for sure, but I did enjoy it and I will hope for a season 4. And with that, teacups, happy to be back in the new year with you all. If you liked our Hot Chai Awards roundup or the rest of it, feel free to press like below, and thank you if you did vote. And until next week, bye!
Listen up, it's jazz.